Welcome to the Legacy Podcast. We're bringing you topical conversations on faith, social justice, pop culture, technology, and more. I am your host, Marion Michelle, and each episode I will be joined by a special guest, and together we will explore what it looks like to leave a legacy of good on the earth. Thanks for joining and enjoy the podcast. Hello and welcome to the Legacy Podcast. I am your host, Marion Michelle. This is episode 1, and joining me is none other than my grandmother, Marion Watkins. Grandma, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Marion. I'm just so happy to be here, and I will do my best to give her my legacy of 85 years.
85 years of life. That is a wealth of wisdom. And I'm so excited that you are joining me, Grandma. Tell me, were you excited, nervous, curious when I first asked you to be on the podcast?
Yes, I was. I was excited, more than curious, because knowing my granddaughter, she has a gift for wanting to learn and understand. So for her, it didn't surprise me that she would be taking this journey.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I tried to give my grandma a little bit of an outline of what to expect, but we're going to go ahead and put her in the hot seat. So anytime I have a guest on with the show, they're also my co-host. So today we're going to be going through some culture topics. I'm going to interview my grandma, get a little bit more about her story. But Grandma, I'm going to go ahead and throw you in the hot seat just so our listeners can learn a little bit more about you. Just some fun facts. So you said you're 85 years old. You got a birthday coming up, actually.
Right, yeah.
And you're going to be turning 86. Now, how many children do you have?
I have 4. I have 1 boy and 3 girls.
And how many grandchildren?
I have 14 grand, and I have 14 great-grand with 2 on the way in June. So we're increasing as we go.
Woo, Lord. It's a lot of kids, Grandma.
Yes,
and one of my cousins, you just told me literally before we started recording, has a baby on the way.
Yes, number 5.
Whew, man, take fruitful and multiply. Took that commandment seriously. And how many siblings do you have?
I have 13, and I'm the oldest of 13. And we're all, I won't say all healthy, but we are fairly healthy, but we're all alive. And that's the beauty of it. We're still alive.
Wow. So not only did you and my grandpa take the commandment of fruitful and multiply seriously, but your parents did, and they had 13 children. Now, I remember you telling me in conversation before that if you could afford more children, you had more children. Is that what happened?
Well, for him, my father, yes, that's the way he saw it. He just knew he could afford it because he was a mortician. But he always used his African heritage, and he believed, back in Africa, they believed that the more children you have, it was a gift because then they could help on the land, because most of them were on the land. But that was the reason they continue to have a lot of kids. It was a show of wealth.
Wow. And so he could afford to have the 13, praise the Lord. Shout out to my great-grandmother, your mom, who had 13 children. That's a lot. So what did your dad do for a living that he could afford that many kids?
Well, he had his own funeral home. He was a mortician. And he came up from Alabama. He had a brother that was a doctor and a brother that was a pharmacist. So they told him it would be he was the youngest to become a mortician, and that's what he did. He had owned his own business for 55 years before he passed.
And he also owned a supermarket, right?
Yeah, he owned a supermarket. He owned a farm. He owned property. See, he believed in property. So he owned a whole block of homes. It was the block contained about 7 two-story homes. And he owned those. And then he helped build a church. And his name is on the cornerstone of this large Baptist church.
Really?
So he believed in property. It was very important that you own property and land. He had a farm, that he had a grocery store, so he would use the farm to furnish the fresh food for his grocery store. And it was called Your Store.
And is the farm, the property, like, is that something that your siblings are still looking after over on the East Coast, or no?
No, they don't. They all went into different areas. The problem was that when the oldest boy was the seventh child, which really in biblical thing, being the seventh son is a blessing. But by the time my dad was an older man when he married my mother, so we didn't grow up to follow all the things that he did. But they're property owners, so they're doing some things that he's done.
But there is a little bit of a gap though between
Yes,
what he did and the next generation.
Yes.
I'm curious. What's great granddad's name?
Elijah Malachi Mason.
Wow, that's biblical. Elijah Malachi
Malachi
Mason. All right. Also, I love your maiden name, Marion Mason. Obviously, I'm a sucker for alliteration. It's Mariah Michelle. But okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Thank you for sharing a little bit of that personal history. I'm gonna put you in the hot seat because I want our listeners to just have a little bit more of a sense of who you are as a person, and they're just gonna be rapid fire questions. Okay. So, Grandma, what's your favorite color?
White and blue.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I just think white is such a clean, beautiful color, and it's just beautiful. I love white.
It's clean. It's elegant. You're currently wearing white and blue. The listeners can't see you, but I'm here to describe. She's got the elegant colors on. I'm wearing white and blue.
Sure
Look at us matching, Grandma.
Yeah,
We have like a light blue jean on. We have a white top on. Oh my God, I love that. So here's the thing. For me, every time I wake up in the morning, I sometimes get a little bit overwhelmed. I'm like, oh, there's so much to do. I have a day to plan. So I literally ask the Lord, I'm like, God, what should I wear today? And so he'll show me in pictures. He'll be like, wear that, wear that, wear that. So he knew that we were going to coordinate. I love it. I love it. Okay, if you could have breakfast with any celebrity, what celebrity would it be and why?
What breakfast?
Yeah, you just have breakfast with any celebrity. Who would you pick?
I think I would like to have grits, eggs, biscuit, and bacon.
It's you describing the breakfast, but what? Amen. That sounds like a hearty meal. If you had to have your grits, eggs, and bacon with a celebrity, what celebrity would you pick?
Ooh. Washington.
Oh, Denzel.
Yes, if I could have breakfast, I'd have it with him.
Why Denzel?
I don't know. I think he's just one. He's an awesome actor.
Yeah.
And he's upright. He shows he really has a clean heart. And I just think he's a magnificent actor. And a good-looking man.
I was about to say, he's also eye candy. Let's not sleep on that.
Yes, he is.
We love it. I love that that's your answer. Denzel he's such a grounded, I feel like, person that I feel like what you see is what you get with him.
Yes.
Like that he wouldn't be some sort of stiff diva type of person in real life. He seems like he has like a real sense, like down to earth, sense of humanity. I love that. So you and Denzel are having some grits, some eggs, and some bacon. We love it. Okay, next question. Describe for me what your perfect day is. Like most ideal, time is not a factor, health is not a factor, money's not a factor, geography is not a factor. Like, what is your ideal day?
I think an ideal day for me is walking in the park and just looking at the people go by. That's the ideal day for me. Or if I was driving, I would love to just go out to the country and just drive where there's nothing to see but nature and the beauty of it all.
Oh, I love that. Now, on this drive, are we listening to music? Is it just quiet? Like what kind of, like when you're driving and you're looking at the scenic and the nature, do you have something playing in the background or is it just stillness?
I like quiet. I'm a visual person, so I like to visualize it and just take it all in.
I love it. So we're taking a drive. Are we shopping on this day, or are we gonna sit somewhere? Are we gonna, like, what else is part of this perfect day?
Well, the drive, I would go as far as I could. I love to drive. And if the road was endless, I would just continue to drive. But like I said, at some point, I would love to stop in a beautiful park and just sit and watch nature and watch the world.
You know what's funny? So this was a Harvard research study where they were taking rats and mice and looking at how the DNA of the offspring was affected by the patriarch, right? So they took a male rat, exposed it to the scent of cherry blossoms, right? But then followed it with an electric shock. And now the offspring, even though they never experienced an electric shock, anytime they were exposed to the smell of cherry blossom, they would feel visceral, like they would tighten up, their stress hormones would spike, and that would continue on for like 3 generations down with the rats. But with the worms, it's like 14 generations down, where the DNA of the offspring is altered because of the lived experiences. Now, this works both on the positive and the negative. So I think when I'm hearing you describe your perfect day, that sounds a lot like the type of moments that I have, where I'll be sitting in nature or taking a long drive, and I just feel at peace. And so hearing you say that, it's like, wow, okay, it's not just like, you know, that this is something that you've experienced and you find peace with, but it's something that lives on in the people that are part of your legacy, your generations. Okay, thank you for sitting in the hot seat. We appreciate it. We're gonna jump into our current and culture segment. And with our current and culture, I like to introduce news stories that, you know, some of them are pop culture, some of them are related to social justice or technology. So I have a few stories that I want to run by you. I want to hear what your thoughts are, and yeah, we'll go from there. So the first one, this is more of an upbeat. We love it. Have you heard of the Golden Bachelor?
The what?
The Golden Bachelor?
No.
No? Okay, so are you familiar with The Bachelor, the TV show? Where they have, you know, the dude and he has roses and there's the eligible, like, single people who are, like, vying for his attention, right? So for the first time ever, what's known as the Golden Bachelor for people who are senior citizens, like, who are still looking for love. So they have the first Golden Bachelor. His name is Gary Turner, 74 years old. First, I'm going to pull up a picture so you can see who I'm talking about. He was married for the longest time, lost his wife due to cancer, and now is on the Golden Bachelor, where he is dating 22 women and has to narrow it down to one woman to spend the rest of his life with, and it ends with an engagement. And he's 74 years old. But the women, the 22 women, you have people who are in their 70s, some who are in their 80s, some who are in their 60s. So I'm just curious, Grandma, you know, we have people out here who have lost spouses, but they're still looking for love. Is this something that you would be open to? Would that...
I'm going to be honest, no. I was married 58 years, and that was a wonderful time, but I would never again. I look for love, but I'm not looking to marry.
To get married. You're not trying to do that.
No. I would love to have a good companion, have someone with a good relationship you could enjoy their time. But no, it's no way I would marry again.
Never again?
Never.
Why, Grandma?
Again.
So okay, I'm going to show you the picture. This is what the Golden Bachelor looked like. That's Gary. You think he's handsome?
I said, oh, he is.
Then she said, oh, she said, wait a minute. He's 74. Looking for love. Yeah. I know he look good, right? He's got a nice little tan. He's out here. Yeah. Lovely gentleman. I've been watching. He's down to 2 women right now.
I'm going to look at it because I've heard, and now that you mention it, yeah, they're doing it on The Bachelor.
And these are like the 3 finalists right here.
Out of 22 women?
Out of 22. But he's currently...
Wait, now, the one that was in the gold suit, he was first, or the guy you showed?
What are you talking about? Oh, this man right here?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's the Bachelor.
Oh, okay.
He's the one looking for love. So you say you'd be open to find love, but you definitely want to get married. You don't want to get
Well,
married
for
again.
me, for love would just have companionship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not looking to,
She said, What's your type, Grandma?
Huh?
What's your type? Do you have a type?
I really don't.
Would you ever date a white man?
I don't know, I might. It depends on if he's okay, but he'd have to be really awesome.
And by awesome, we mean culturally aware. We mean like he has to have some sense of, I think. Now, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So what do you mean by awesome?
Well, he would have to be interesting, and I'm going to be honest, he would have to be a professional person. No, I shouldn't say that, because he could be a laborer. I think if somebody with a good sense of humor, that's what I would like. A person that has a great sense of humor and that just enjoys life. Those would be the two qualities.
Yeah.
And I don't think it would matter what race they were.
Yeah.
If they had those qualities.
Yeah, at this age, you're like, it don't matter.
No, it wouldn't.
But when you got married the first time around, did you feel that pressure that it had to be a black person?
Well, that's the only people we knew.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I was in a segregated time.
Right.
So the only people around me were black.
Right.
So you never even thought of a white person
You
or
wouldn't
any
have been
other
exposed
race.
to it, yeah.
Yeah. You didn't even live near them, so you couldn't socialize with them.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. Okay. Well, if you're out there, and how young is too young for you, Grandma?
A man?
Yeah.
Too young?
Too young.
Oh, 70-year-olds would be too young.
70-year-olds, that's a no. So Gary Turner, he don't count.
No,
He's
I wouldn't be
74. That's
interested
too
in
old.
none of those.
That's too much. Okay, so we're not doing 10 years younger. We're doing maybe 5 years younger max. Maybe 7 years younger max.
I wouldn't want a 10-year-old.
Well, my listeners are probably of the age range of 25 to 35. So if you got a single granddad out there who fits the bill. She said, I love it. Okay, next story. All right, we got the 71-year-old woman in Scotland, Miss Cameron. She's never felt pain or anxiety in her life. She has a genetic... like scientists have found that it's within her DNA that actually permits her from not feeling physical pain or anxiety. So this woman, this was a story that comes from New York Times. She was being interviewed, and when she was describing childbirth, she described it as a tickle. It felt like a tickle. Women, what you think about that, Grandma?
Good for her. That's all I can say.
Would you want to trade places with her in the sense of like never being able to feel pain or anxiety?
Well, I guess it would be a great idea. I mean, who wants pain? And anxiety is pain, to be honest, to me. So, never.
Never in her life. And so she'll like be cooking, and if she burns herself, she won't feel that. Like,
No,
and
I
it also
don't like that.
heal. Like she was saying how it heals very quickly. So like, if she gets like a cut, bruise or whatever, not only does she not feel it, but it relatively heals quickly. And her dad had the same, like he was the same. He never felt pain. So scientists are looking at her genetic makeup to see if there's a way that they can implement new medicines, technology to help people who struggle with depression or, as a painkiller, right? But, one of the things mentioned in the article is that there's such a gap between understanding how this works within her DNA and actually implementing a medicine. Which would cost billions upon billions of dollars. But she's just an interesting medical phenomena that she's never felt pain or anxiety. But I don't know, for me, pain is even though it's uncomfortable, I think it's one of the most potent teachers. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so not just on, once you feel pain, knowing what to avoid so that you don't feel that again. But I think even like when in your own emotional maturing, your spiritual maturing, you actually need pain to have like a deeper understanding, I think, of who God is, but also just character development and building resilience and having even a greater appreciation for things. Because even, are you familiar with that verse where it says, the joy of the Lord is our strength? It's found in Jeremiah. So that word joy in the Hebrew, it was understood within the context of coming after suffering and loss. So even being able to feel the depths of joy and the fullness of joy is in the context of having first experienced great loss. So I don't know. I think there's certain things that we can't have a full appreciation for until we feel pain. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. And you said it extremely well. And you're right. Because one, even kids, you'll tell them, if you burn that, put your hand and burn it one time, you're not going to do it again. So it teaches you what is best for you.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I can't imagine somebody that can't feel any pain or anxiety.
Strange, right?
Yeah, that is awful strange.
Because in a way, it protects us, too.
Oh, yeah. And anxiety, definitely, because you go out in the street and the cars are going fast, you're going to know to jump out of the way. That's anxiety. So I don't know if I want to live like that.
I hear you. Well, that's it for our current and culture segment. Thank you, Grandma, for I feel like our listeners got to hear a little bit about, a little bit of your personal story, but I would love to just transition into the interview segment where we can learn a little bit more about your upbringing. And also, too, I would just love to talk about education and, of course, what does legacy mean to you and what you hope for your legacy to be on the earth. So let's just start even, too, circling back to what you mentioned earlier about Mr. Elijah. What was it? Elijah? Malachi Mason. Great-granddad.
Biblical.
Great. It's biblical. I know. We love that. So he owned a mortuary, a supermarket. He had a farm. You said he was a first multimillionaire?
Not multi-millionaire, first black millionaire undertaker. He was the first.
Dang. Well, y'all, just context. That money ain't in my pocket, so we love that for him. Okay. Wow. And you said, I remember, just in you sharing your story with me that great-granddad Elijah, he had people who helped out in the home. And one time this woman cooked beans and he fired her. Why'd he fire her, Grandma?
Well, he just always said, I remember him telling her, you don't cook beans in this house. Now, why? At my age, I probably was no more than maybe 7, 8 years old, so I had no idea. I guess he just thought beans wasn't to be cooked in his house. But I'm sure he ate beans. There was a restaurant across from the funeral home, and he would go over there to really eat his meals. But I bet you he ate beans. He just didn't want them cooked in his house. Now, it might have been a stigma for people eat beans. I don't know.
Poor people. We love opulence, though. So what kind of neighborhood did you end up growing up in?
Well, to be honest, my dad was an awesome man because he believed in his people. He was a Garveyite. I'll get into that maybe one day. But anyway, he believed, even with all the money he had, we lived in a neighborhood with people from low income to the working class. And that's what I grew up with.
Yeah. Because things were segregated at the time, so...
Yeah, it was all black, but they were either poor or they were the working class, because most of them worked. And I don't remember any professionals being there.
But he still had that loyalty to community that he wanted to maintain. Was there ever a temptation to try and integrate into better neighborhoods that were white for your dad?
Not back then.
Not back
You
then,
didn't even
because it was
think about
illegal.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it wasn't open to you.
Right.
So it wasn't something that wasn't even a dream.
Mm.
And my dad wouldn't have done it anyway. Now, my mother did, but my dad wouldn't do it.
Now, your mom, and what's her name, by the way?
Evelyn.
Evelyn. What's her middle name?
K-Thaw.
K-Thaw?
What's Evelyn?
K-Thaw.
K-T-H-A-W. K-Thaw.
K-Thaw. That sounds like medicine.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know where they got K-Thaw from.
Evelyn K-Thaw Mason.
And your aunt Angela is K-Thaw.
That's her middle name. That's right. Wow. Okay, so great-grandma Evelyn, she had 13 children. And her dad, he was so white or light-skinned, they nicknamed him Snow, right?
Yes,
right. Okay, and her mom, she had Indian descent as well?
No, my mom didn't. Her mom looked more Indian. My great-grandmother, she did.
Yeah.
But probably most of those great-grands had some Indian in them.
Do you know what type of Indian?
No, my dad had his complexion was he was dark, but it was a reddish dark.
So he also had Indian in him. But your mom, Evelyn, she was very fair.
Very fair.
And she could pass as white.
She did.
She often did.
Well, the reason I say she did is because my dad, like I said, he was 33, she was 17 when they got married.
Wait, hold on, pause really quick. So your dad was 33 of age, and Evelyn was...
my mother at 17.
And they got married. At that time, if you were under 18, did you need a parent's consent to get married, or it was fine?
I have no idea.
Because now that would be hella illegal. Like, they would have to, in order for someone under 18 to get married, they would have to have, a parent's consent for that.
Her uncle.
Yeah.
Well, my mom came up from Mississippi. And back then, my mother had a brother that had a wife. They were childless. So when she was 13, they needed to take her out of Mississippi. The man started looking, and she was getting to be a teenager. Her grandmother raised her, and her brother. She had a brother too. And so they sent her to Detroit. They sent him to St. Louis. But my mother was raised from that time on by my uncle and my Aunt Ann that lived up over the funeral home. My dad always had rental property over his funeral home. So he saw her from 13 to 17.
Oh, wow.
And I guess he waited.
He waited!
I guess, because it's 17.
Crazy. He said 17's good enough.
Yeah, and I'm sure my uncle never approved of it because she was married a rich man.
Yeah, wow.
So
and they also wanted her to be protected, I'm sure, because she was...
And so she married this rich undertaker.
Wow.
And he treated her like a queen.
Wow. Because after she had a child, right? She would go to spas to be pampered.
Now, I don't know if she went when I was born.
Yeah.
Because Hot Springs, Arkansas opened up for white folks. But he sent her, and she could pass, so she would go to the Hot Spring, Arkansas. Now, I don't remember that. She probably didn't go until my brother was the 7th child. So that had to be.
So after baby 7, now mind you, this is 7 of 13. So from 7 on to the final one, 13, she would fly from Detroit to Arkansas to go to a whites only spa, and she would pass.
Well, that's why I said then she couldn't pass.
And then white folks didn't know to better. They didn't know she just popped out a black baby. And or light skin, because you're fair complexion. Yeah. But your dad is very dark skinned. Okay.
We're like half and half.
Like half. Yeah. Really? So the grandkids or the children, Half of you came out lighter skin, the other half came out
did.
darker skin. Interesting. Okay, so I kind of want to circle back to what you were mentioning about your dad and living in a Black community, because you and I have had conversation before, and in looking at how things are for Black people today, everything is very sporadic, right? Black people are kind of everywhere, and you have Black entrepreneurs, but there's not really the same concentration of wealth and support. And so I remember in conversation you were like, segregation was better. I was like, better? Or
you got to see professionals. You saw doctors, lawyers. Everybody lived within walking distance of wherever you grew up. And I remember our doctor, his office was upstairs, and I can't remember what he was upstairs over, but he was in walking distance.
Wow.
And then the man that birthed all of us, he was the first one to open the Black History Museum. Right, Dr. Wright. So see, they were all there together, and so I grew up seeing nothing but prosperous, because on the block was my dad. Then there was I can't remember what that was next door to us, but down the street there was a garage, a cleaners. There was grocery store, pretty good size one.
Yeah.
And then my uncle's pharmacy on the other side, and it was big.
Wow. So, yeah, I mean, because I think on the surface, a statement like segregation is better, it's like, wait, what? But I see from your perspective and even from your lived experiences how having this concentration of Black entrepreneurs, doctors, pharmacists,
Politicians,
right?
Lawyers. Everybody was right there.
Right there. And now what we see, is obviously we have a very multicultural society, and the demographics ethnically have changed, where you have a lot more interracial marriages now, and we see that that's the direction of things. But you also see that there's an isolation when it comes to Black communities supporting one another. And I think that there are, growing, I think in 2020 is probably the most mainstream example of where we saw the most public support and rallying behind Black authors, Black entrepreneurs, but it is very separated. I think that's one of the greatest obstacles for seeing Black people really elevate financially, because even if we're looking at the medium household incomes, like the disparities between white earning households and Black earning households, or Latino earning households, is great, right? And so, the name of the podcast is Legacy. What I'm passionate about is, from one generation to the next, how we can not just learn and bequeath information, but really my next question for you is what are some attitudes, perspectives, or even lessons from your generation that you would want your grandchildren to understand, respect, or even maintain? Like, what do you hope is continued long after you're gone?
Their Blackness. I want them to be proud of their color. That's what we grew up seeing, because that's all we knew.
Yeah.
And we were proud to be Black. We didn't even think any other way. So I want them, I know they're interracially married, and that's fine, but I want them to hold on to their Blackness. I want them to keep that, but I want them also in their homes to be taught their Black history, because our history is deep.
Very.
Extremely deep, and it can't just come from here in America. It has to go all the way back to Africa. Yeah. I have an encyclopedia. It's only 3 there, but my dad had 12. We divided them up.
Wow.
That is that Black history that he taught us in our home. We didn't have to wait till we got to school to get to learn Black history. We saw it every day.
Yeah.
We lived it.
Yeah. And, just for our listeners, I'm looking at the 4 copies of the encyclopedias that were previously owned by my great-grandfather. And, the cover is a bit worn and it looks used, which is great. I think that's beautiful. And I love what you're saying, because I do think now more than ever, there is such a tremendous onus to teach Black history, especially in light of, things legislatively that are happening in states like Florida, Georgia, Texas, where in public schools, there's an active and even violent campaign to erase Black history. And I think there's a real white phobia. Now, for my white listeners, because I do have white friends, hey, all right, we not white shaming or anything like that, but there is a real fragility with some of our white counterparts when it comes to teaching Black history, because it's almost as though teaching Black history is somehow shameful or maybe even disrespectful to white people, because there's this argument that it's like, well, that wasn't us, that was our ancestors. But I think what we see unique in America is that erasure of history, whereas if you go to Germany, you have kids who are taught from the age of 5 and 6 what happened during the Holocaust. If you go to South Africa, you will see that there are statues and memorials actively reminding people of apartheid. And, it's, I think, impossible for us to move forward without first acknowledging where we come from, because there has to be a culture of apology, but also reparations. Yes. Like, not just acknowledging what happened, but here's how we're actively trying to rectify the centuries of disenfranchisement to an entire people group. And that's not just Black people. We're recording this on Thanksgiving. That also extends to our Indigenous brothers and sisters, of recognizing that we are on stolen land.
That's so true.
And so, yeah, there's so much I want to explore in our conversation. For the sake of time, what I want to ask you next is in relation to education, and for you to briefly explain, you have your degree, you have your master's, you have aspirations of getting a PhD. Quickly share with us what it is you studied and what you hope your family understands about the role of education.
Well, what did I study? Everything that I could that they offered. I started with psychology. I left that after I exhausted that. I went to Black history, because that's what they were bringing in. And then I just studied a lot of, mainly psychology. I wanted to know how people think, and I wanted to know the different types of things that people go through. So psychology was one of my, even though I ended up teaching, which really helped me a lot, because then I got to learn my kids. But anyway, I think, and then whatever was offered, I just grab it up.
Grab it up.
Yes.
Beautiful.
And I just finished going, it's been 5 years now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I took, then I wanted to understand politics, because my husband was in politics, and so I wanted to understand that.
Yeah. And, if you continue with your aspirations of getting a PhD, what would you study?
Well, actually, I guess because I'm in education, what I started out with my PhD, the main thing I wanted to do is the miseducation of Black gifted children.
Wow.
Males, mainly.
Yeah.
But that was the main thing.
Yeah.
So still in the area of education, but it was the miseducation of gifted. Because they are so misunderstood. And if they don't want to consider them gifted. And that was the area I wanted to study.
And when you say gifted, do you mean just like people, like recognizing the genius of everyday Black men, or do you mean gifted in the sense that there are special needs for?
No, the gifted of the Black male.
Just that,
yeah.
Recognizing and cultivating that,
yes.
Giftedness.
Because I'm convinced that most of our Black males that are in prison is because they were misdiagnosed. They weren't accepted as gifted, but they were gifted.
Yes. I
Anytime
agree.
they could do the things, and I hate to say it, do drugs and divide them up and do that. Most of our black males, I am convinced, are in prison because of their giftedness, and it wasn't cultivated in the classroom, or
Absolutely.
even in the home, or even in
Absolutely.
society.
Yeah.
A lot of our gifted black males are still out there in labor, working labor jobs that don't go anywhere because they're not accepted for the genius that they are.
Wow. Okay, so we could stay here for hours and talk about the failure of the education system and how it can be a direct pipeline into the prison system. We'll save that topic for another day. But I really do want to end asking you a question that I will ask of all of my guests and future co-hosts. Living with legacy in mind, I think, requires us to live urgently and soberly. If you had 1 week left to live, what would you do? Who would you be with? And what would you want us to know?
If I had one what?
1 week left to live. Like, what would you do? Who would you be with? And what would you want us to know?
I only had a week to live.
Yeah?
I want to be surrounded by my kids, grand, great grand, the whole family.
Everyone. And what's something that you would want us to know? Like, if you had to impart one final lesson, what would it be?
I would want them to know their grandfather and their great father and their father. Learn about him and practice what he did. He was an awesome man. And I just think if I could, I would have all my children tell them about their father and why he was such an awesome man. And one thing he didn't believe, he believed in never giving up.
Yeah.
And he believed that you should just give your best in everything you do.
Oh,
and those
beautiful.
are the things I want them to know.
Beautiful. Wow.
And that for me, just keep going on and learning and never stop. Go as high as you can go. It doesn't matter about a degree. Just keep learning and understanding.
Always stay curious.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always.
That's beautiful.
And love one. The main thing is to love and love God.
Yeah. And my grandpa, my grandma's late husband, Vernon Watkins, he would always say, blood is thicker than mud.
Yes, he would.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he believed in that.
He would. He would also say, be cool. That was his little catchphrase, just be cool.
Yes, those were the things.
Yeah.
And you're right, blood is thicker than mud. That's what he wanted you to carry.
Yeah. And he did. He took care of his family.
Yeah,
he really did.
He was a wonderful guy.
Yeah. Well, Grandma, I'm so glad that you're here and that you've shared a bit of your story and your legacy with us. And yeah, I think that's a beautiful lesson to honor, to recognize the great man that Elijah, remind me of Malachi Mason.
He was an awesome, a quiet man.
Quiet man.
Not extremely, but he was a quiet man.
Yeah.
But he took care of his people.
He did. And my great-grandmother, Evelyn K-Thal Mason, and my grandfather, my late grandfather, Vernon Watkins, the first. Because we have like 4 generations of Vernons with my uncle, with my cousin, and with my cousin's son. So we love it. Legacy is living long and strong in this family. Well, thank you again for being with us today, Grandma. And I hope to have you on again in the future.
Yeah. Oh, well, I would love to do that. But thank you, and to a beautiful daughter that I have the joy of taking to New York, which is my favorite city. And she went to NYU. That was a joy that I'll never forget.
We love a good humble brag. Grandma loves to let people know she's my granddaughter. She went to NYU. She graduated with honors. She loved to tell people that. But honestly, I would not have been able to go to New York had it not been for you and Grandpa, and just for believing in me as a person and seeing the potential that was on my life. And, you know, I tell this to my mom all the time, but going to New York changed my life. Going to New York is where I seriously like encountered Jesus for real, for real. Like, you know, it's like I grew up in church, but like I wasn't really about the life, but like for real, met God when I was in New York City. And yeah, he's taken me on an amazing adventure, and I could cry thinking about how truly grateful I am. But I love you, Grandma. Thank you for being on with us today.
Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for episode 1 of the Legacy Podcast. I am your host, Marion Michelle. Until next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Legacy Podcast. If you enjoyed the content, please like, share, comment, send it to a friend. And if you want to go above and beyond and partner with us financially and officially join the Legends Club, you can find a link to our PayPal in the show notes. Again, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate the love and support. You can also head over to our storefront at legacyapparelandgoods.com, where you can purchase apparel designed by yours truly. We also source coffee and tea products from other Black and POC owned businesses. So that's an amazing way to continue to advance the vision of legacy. Well, thanks again for tuning in, guys. Until next time, always remember, live with legacy in mind. Bye for now.